Get ready, because in this section of the Doable Duffel, we're going to be making pieces that actually look like they might be part of a bag. And for this section, you're going to need many of the pieces that you already have created, and we're going to combine them together to create new parts of the bag. Specifically, in this video, I'll be giving you an overview of the steps that it takes to create the gusset, the bag back, and the bag front. So gather up all those pieces, and also don't forget to get your 5 yards of webbing and your hardware. Specifically in this video, we'll be talking about and using the 1.5 inch triangle rings. Sounds fun, right? Let's get to it. Did you hear the word gusset and think, I don't even know what that is? That might be the case, and that's okay. A gusset is really simple. It just happens to be the piece of fabric that goes all the way around the perimeter of the bag. Then you attach a bag front and a bag back, and then all of a sudden you've got a completed thing. So we need to make this circle. The gusset is comprised of the zipper strip at the top, and then it is also attached to the bag bottom at the sides, and then we've added some pockets, some webbing, and some hardware. And since we've already made the zipper strip at the top, we're going to start now with the bag bottom. Now you'll want to take your bag bottom and mark some lines on it according to the pattern instructions. When you do that, you're going to end up with 2 lines that are parallel to the short edges of the bag bottom. And then you're going to want to end up with 2 lines that come off of those that are parallel with the long edge of your bag bottom. And you want to make sure that you mark the exterior fabric, not the lining fabric. Then you're going to take your 2 carrying strap tabs that have the hardware sort of in between the fold, and you're going to align them so that the cut edge touches this line that is parallel to the short edge, and then you want to align the side of the webbing along one of these lines. So you'll do that for both of them, and you know to put your carrying strap tabs on the inside of this line because you want them to be roughly centered in the middle of the short edge of your bag bottom. So if you were to place them along this side of the line, you could quickly look at that and see, well, that's not quite right because this carrying strap tab is not in the center of my bag bottom. So instead, you're just going to want to place them like so. Then you're going to take this to your sewing machine and you're going to attach these carrying strap tabs to the bag bottom. And you're going to do that by stitching a line 1/8 of an inch away from the exterior of those, and then you're going to create a boxed X within these marked lines. Once again, my lines were completely invisible on camera, so I just used some pins to show you roughly where those lines should be. So you're going to stitch all the way around, make a boxed X, come back down, and then stitch across the bottom, and you'll do that for both of the carrying strap tabs. Once you've got your carrying strap tabs attached to the bottom of your bag, as in your bag bottom, you're going to want to take your side pockets, and here's where we're going to attach these to the bag bottom. Now, in the end, what we want is for our side pockets to be covering up our carrying strap tabs with just our little triangle poking out the top. But we can't stitch them down like this because then there would be all this exposed raw edge of our side pocket, which is no good. So instead, what we're going to do is lay them with the right sides facing, the exterior sides touching, and we're going to align the bottom of this side pocket with this line that was drawn previously, and we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch down here, and then we're going to fold this up, and then we're going to top stitch on top of that, and that is going to enclose all of the raw bits of the raw edge of this and the raw edge of our webbing. So what you need to do is take these 2 side pockets, align them with those lines that you already drew. If you'd like, I think it's probably a good idea to just clip it or pin it in place. Take this to your sewing machine and stitch a 1/4 of an inch away from this cut edge right here. Now that the side pockets are attached at the bottom, it's time to flip them over and then stitch them in place. So the one thing I want you to pay attention to here is that the goal when you flip this over is to stitch a line of stitching along here that is far enough in that it is definitely going to cover up and catch and hide the bottom of this webbing. So the pattern says to use a generous 1/2 inch, and that is what I would recommend. So I'm going to fold this over, I'm going to clip it in place, and then I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this edge, 1/2 an inch away from this edge, making sure that I feel that webbing underneath there, and then 1/8 of an inch away from this edge when I go to my sewing machine. And if after all of that is done, there's a chance that I might need to do some trimming. So if that happens to be the case and you find that after you've sewn this together that you need to trim down your side pockets because they've somehow grown wider than your bag bottom, that's totally fine to do. So same thing on this side, I'm just going to flip this over, clip it in place, take it to my sewing machine, and then I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from the sides and 1/2 inch away from the bottom. And with this one, I'm going to stop being lazy and I'm going to change the thread color so that the top and the bobbin thread match the exterior and the interior respectively. And for me, that's just basically going to be the same color, like a light colored thread. So there it is, that's the bag bottom, and that's as much work as we need to do to make the bag bottom. But the next step is to actually attach it to the zipper strip in order to create our donut circle, which is going to be our gusset. So here's my top tip of this week, and that is to pay close attention to the next few steps, because we're going to be attaching these two together and using binding. And you've seen us do that lots of times in this bag project so far, but this is totally different. So I need you to just sort of suspend your understanding of how you bind two things together and instead pay close attention to the next few steps. Okay, so step one, we're going to put our zipper strip and match up the short ends with our bag bottom. Either side will do, doesn't matter. You want the right sides or the exterior sides touching each other, and you're going to align them so that they are nicely aligned, and then you're going to take one of your two remaining pieces of binding. Remember when we made this so long ago? Good times. We're going to align the raw edge of one of these bindings along these raw edges. And you're going to do this on the zipper side. So you're not going to attach the binding to the bag bottom side. You're going to do it the other way. Okay, so put them together with your zipper on top and align the edges. Then you're going to take this to your sewing machine, as we have lots of times before, and you're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch away from this edge. And then pause. Don't do what you think you're supposed to do after that. I want you to pause. So let me bring that over and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. The binding is attached, like we've done a bunch of times before. Now, I know that your probably instinct is to roll this binding over and stitch it down, and that's where you need to stop yourself from doing that. Instead, I want you to open the whole thing up, lay it flat on your workspace, and then you want to push the binding over towards the bag bottom side. So the binding is currently on the zipper strip side, and we're trying to push it over to the bag bottom side. And what you're going to do is take this to your sewing machine, and then you're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this fold. And that is going to neatly encase all of these raw edges, and it's going to create a line of stitches on the bag bottom side of the exterior fabric. So for this, because you're going to see those stitches, I would change that top thread color to match your binding fabric, and I would change the bobbin thread to match your exterior fabric. And for me, like, you might want to try glue basting this. I have never done that, but I have really good luck when I do this using my stiletto tool, so I can push the binding over to make sure that it is laying as flat as possible. And I also use a narrow foot on my sewing machine. For this part is pretty much the only part that I use it for, but I find that it really helps me. But you can also do this if you don't have a narrow foot for your sewing machine, I promise. I just find it's easier to use that tool. Okay, so here it is after sewing. The binding has been pressed down and I stitched 1/8 of an inch away from this edge. And then on the front, you can see that it creates this line of stitching. So you do want that to match, but it's a nice clean look and it just sort of finishes off those two. And then on the inside, it's just nicely finished and flat. So I really like that binding technique for gussets, especially when you need to make two things joined together. Cute, right? Well, now these two are attached at one point, but I need to continue on. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing where I'm going to pair them together, right sides or exterior fabrics together. I'm going to sew the binding fabric along this edge on the zipper side. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from that. Then I'm going to lay it nice and flat, flatten them out, push that binding across, and then stitch it down just like I did last time. And in no time, this really long, skinny rectangle is going to become a circle. Well, this is a gusset. So you can climb inside it, and all we have to do now is attach a bag front and a bag back to it, and then this will be the actual bag. But there's a couple more steps here. I just want to trim off these extra bits of binding fabric, because you know I like to make things wider than they need to be, and then I can trim them down afterwards without having to stress, about, perfectly lining my binding fabric. So that's that. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to use a label, right? You knew I was going to say that. So I'm just going to attach, in case there was any doubt, this is the gusset. So congratulations, if you made this, you have maybe made your first gusset, and I'll bet she's a cutie. Now we're going to work on our bag back, and we're starting with the bag back because it's a little less complicated than the bag front, but very doable. So first thing you got to do is mark your bag back according to the pattern instructions. You should have 2 lines that are running along, that are parallel to the short edge. And you should also have marked one of your handle webbings. Again, my lines are invisible, so I just put some pins on there. Then you're going to arrange the cut edge of your webbing with the bottom of your bag back. So if you had a directional print and there was like bunnies going up this way, you would put the cut edge at the bottom, and you're going to align the edge of the webbing inside the line, so more towards the center. And then you're going to make sure that you don't twist the webbing, and you're going to arrange it so that if there is a right side, it's facing up, and arrange this other side where it's touching this line on the inside. Then you're going to take this to your sewing machine. Wait, is that twisted? No, it's not. We're okay. But it would be really sad if you accidentally twisted the whole thing and then sewed it down, because then you'd forever have a twist in your handle, and I don't think you want that. So just pay close attention, make sure that you have not twisted it. Take this to the sewing machine, and then you're just going to attach the handle to the bag back. And you're going to stitch 1/8 of an eight away from the edge of the webbing, create a boxed X inside those lines, and then come back down the other side. Stitch across the bottom, then do the same thing for the other half of the handle. Once the handle is attached to your bag back, there's just a little bit more to do. So for this, what we're going to be doing is attaching the interior pocket to the bag back. So you'll want to lay the interior pocket face down so that the zipper teeth are touching your work table. Then you're going to lay your bag back on top, and then you're going to clip the 2 of them together. You're going to take this sandwich and take it to your sewing machine, and you're going to sew 1/8 of an inch around the exterior of the bag back. And when you come to the top, you're going to need to flip this handle out of the way so you don't accidentally stitch across it, because that's not what you want. You want these to be loose and free. And I like to do this job with the interior pocket on the bottom touching the table, or the, yep, the table of my sewing machine. So I do that because the bag back is usually a little bit smaller than the interior pocket is. So I can see where 1/8 of an inch away from the exterior is when I've got the bag back on top. So I'm going to go stay stitch around that exterior. Ah, much better. Now these 2 are actually attached to each other, and you can unzip it and put things inside, and they'll stay in there, and you can zip it back up. Now the last thing to do here is just to trim the excess fabric, because there's more of your interior fabric than their interior pocket than there is of your bag back. So you'll want to round those corners, trim off any excess along the sides, and then you can label this, and this is your bag back. Ta-da! The bag back is made much in the same way as the front one is, but there's an extra little wrinkle in that there's an additional pocket that goes on the front of the bag front. So this is our front pocket piece or unit that we created before, that's got the lining fabric on the inside. It's got a zipper, and what you want to do is mark the bottom of the center of your front pocket unit, as well as the bottom of the center of your bag front, and then align those 2. Align the 2 bottom edges, and then you're going to want to pin this in place. I've tried avoiding pinning this because I don't really like pinning, but the fact is you got to do it. You need these 2 things to be attached, and I don't have any magnets that are strong enough to hold all this many layers of soft and stable together. So now that they are as one, now I'm going to do the same thing. I've got my other handle, and I've got it marked. That's, we're using heavy quotation marks there, because I've got my pins marking the edge where I need to sew those boxed X. And then I'm going to align this webbing on the inside of the line that I marked on the bag front. And I'm going to take that to my sewing machine, sew up the top 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the webbing, sew across, sew a boxed X in the middle, and then come down the other side. And this is where I'm going to attach. This is how this front pocket piece actually gets attached, not through these pins, obviously. I'm going to come down the bottom, stitch across the bottom. And I'm going to do exactly the same with the other side. I'll align the cut edges along the bottom of the bag front, and I will align it along that along the line that I have drawn, stitch 1/8 of an inch away, create a boxed X, and then come back down this side. And then the difference is at the end, I'll stitch across the bottom of the front pocket and the bag front in order to attach the two of them together. So there's not, I mean, that's it for this step. That's all there is. That's all it takes to create the bag front. There's no other extra pieces or lining fabric or anything like that. You just got to sew this and make sure that these two are really well aligned before you start. And by simply attaching this handle, you have now created a bag front that has a cute handle, a slip pocket, a larger slip pocket, and then a smaller zippered pocket. So the bag front's got lots of cuteness going on, and it was all because you created all those pieces and then put them together. Great job! This week you created a gusset, which is maybe a word that you had never even heard before today. And you've also created a bag back that has got a large interior zippered pocket, and you created a bag front that has not only a slip pocket, but also a zippered pocket as well. And I think that we can all probably agree that at this point, this almost looks like it could be part of a bag. All that's left is to attach these three things together, and then we're gonna have ourselves a finished doable duffel. We're gonna tackle that next week's video. But if you've been watching these videos and you think, gee, I like this content, but I need a little bit more help, you'll want to check out my online course called Duffel Master. That's the course where I share every single tiny little bit of information, every detail, every nuance, every tool that I have to make it more professional and more professionally finished looking, I would say. That's the course that you want to check out. So I'll put a link to that course in the description below so you can check it out whenever it works for you. Until then, I'm wishing you happy bag making, and I'll see you in my next video.